Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amorim prepares to reveal his biggest secret weapon tonight against Bodo Glimt. Also, a January double exit. We'll be talking about that. An ex-United player, can you guess who it is yet, says that Gyökeres may not be the answer for Manchester United. Angel Gomes, the latest on him. Remember, Man United could be talking to him in a month's time. A bit of a story around Marcus Rashford potentially leaving. We've also got, what else have we got? Somebody talking about Ten Hag. And also, there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, just the hilarity. What I want to call a hilarious headline. Mark's hilarious headline. We'll talk about that as well. Lots to get into on the show this morning. Of course, it's a new show. Of course, it's match day as well. Very excited. Tonight, we'll be watching Amorim's first game at Old Trafford. And we'll be talking about what his secret weapon is for that as well. But before we get into all that, I just want to say thanks everyone for tuning in. And of course, if you are one of our American friends, happy Thanksgiving. It's always a day that intrigues me massively. Like it's... I know it's not your Christmas, but you get the day off, you get to eat turkey and you get NFL and all this, and we've just got no concept of it here in the UK, but it sounds good and I hope you enjoy it. So big shout out to everybody who is celebrating Thanksgiving today. Thanks for joining us. Anyway, make sure you smash a like and subscribe. Let's get into the show. And we're going to talk straight away here about Amorim and unleashing his biggest weapon. Okay. Secret weapon. I think we'll go with that. I think it says biggest in the title. So, you are it. You are it. And yet again, Amorim comes with another soundbite that resonates with the United fans. He's basically saying that tonight is my first home game. It's my first game at Old Trafford. And our biggest weapon is our fan base. And it's you. And he's absolutely correct. We've spoken about this so many times over the years. I remember the Sir Alex Ferguson days. I was fortunate to be at some of those games, but even if you weren't watching it on ITV on a Wednesday night, the roar of Old Trafford, if you're old enough, you know, that first 5-10 minutes, overlapping fullbacks, get people in the box, put crosses in, win corners, try and score a goal. It's not necessarily about being gung-ho, it's about high energy, it's about getting that crowd going, and we haven't done it enough over the last decade. When I think about Manchester United growing up or when we were successful under Sir Alex, we always had that ability, that Old Trafford. I mean, I took Seb for the first time the other week. He was just in awe of it as he walked out, and I purposely didn't bring him out until 2 minutes before the game because I wanted him to see Old Trafford full. If you go to Old Trafford, a lot of people will get there 45 minutes before and sit in an empty stadium and watch it fill up. I think when that happens, you don't really notice the gravitas of the crowd. So I took Seb in, 2 minutes before kickoff so he could see it, right before kickoff, and it took his breath away. It takes my breath away. It always has. It's just an amazing stadium. That is a weapon, and Amorim is absolutely correct, and we have wasted it. Absolutely wasted it for a decade. That crowd is always bubbling for the first 2 minutes before the game, and then we basically just turn the temperature down and allow the opposition to play. What Sir Alex used to do so well is he knew that, and he'd be like, for the first 10 minutes, we've got to keep that heat up because it will stay bubbling for the rest of the half. And this is what I think we're going to see from Amorim tonight. I think we've got to get at teams. It's not the crowd's responsibility to get behind a team and stay vocal when it's not giving them anything because it's fake. The crowd will be there if you utilise it, if you give it a spark. And that's why Sir Alex would get people overlapping. That's why he would get people in the box. That's why he would whip crosses in, because they are cliche events in a match that make the crowd get excited. When you see Patrice Evra running past Ronaldo to put a cross in, people are like, oh, look at him, he's up for it. When that cross comes in and it gets blocked for a corner, come on. These are the things. So I think he's absolutely correct. And it amazes me that it's taken 5 managers since Sir Alex Ferguson to figure this one out. Having said that, it doesn't mean that Jose didn't want to do it. It doesn't mean that Ollie didn't want to do it. Amorim saying he wants to do it, it actually happening is going to be the key, isn't it? So let's see if it happens. I think he's absolutely spot on again. The crowd at Old Trafford hasn't been utilised, and it's down to the players to do it. Robert McCormack says, I hope he rests as much of the team as possible. Robert, you're a legend because you've just reminded me about a bit of team news tonight. Mainu's going to start. A couple of players might be missing out. Ahmad's been mentioned. We'll talk about that in a moment. Gift, Real G, member for 12 months. You're a legend as well. Lots to get into on the show this morning. It is a news show, so I want to fly through some of it. So, double exit. United's January sale. Zirkzee and Antony on the thumbnail. What's this all about? Well, look, it's in the news. It's coming in from Tutto Sport and Gazzetta dello Sport that contact has been made with Manchester United on Tuesday for Zirkzee from Juventus, and that the agent of Zirkzee, I can't remember his name, the second name begins with a K. Is it Gia? I can't remember what it is. Anyway, he's going to be talking to Manchester United over the next few weeks to get clarity on what is happening with Zirkzee. This is starting. Shane O'Hara says, I've just watched your interview on Webby O'Neill. It's class. Thanks, mate. Check it out if you haven't. Really appreciate that. Loved doing it. I'm sure we'll do more and we'll get them on our channel as well. But I just want to say on the Zirkzee stuff, I personally will say that I find it incredible that we're talking about doing this. But what I find credible is that these stories just won't go away. We know that there was advanced talks in Italy. He was playing in Italy with Bologna. There was advanced talks with AC Milan. There was talk about he came to Man United because we paid the agent more money. Maybe that was true. I don't forget. I'm like an elephant. I don't forget. And I remember that he was going to AC Milan, and then this story came out that Man United were willing to pay the agent more money. So I look, Vicky, the moderator, says Zirkzee doesn't look happy. I'm just starting to sense, and I don't know. I mean, it's almost worth, how do I get loads of your opinions on this? I think a poll, isn't it? Will Zirkzee be here next season? Because that's just opinion, isn't it? Next season. Give us your thoughts. Will he be here next season? Because that's going to be what your interpretation of what's going on is. It's constant. It's constant. And it's constantly Juventus. And it's constantly Italy, and it's constantly Zirkzee, and it's all the time, and it's happening again. And the more we get close to January, the more it's going to keep happening if there's something in it. I'm starting to think there's something in it. Personally, I don't think there should be something in it. I don't think he's had a chance. I think there's a good player there. It's for the first 3 months it's been very lots of upheaval. The team around him's not playing well. We've only just brought a new manager in. We've had one game. We play with 2 players behind a striker. I mean, there's effectively 3 positions he could play. I just think it's way too early with Zirkzee. And as we know, it's easier to have something than it is to get rid. Having said that, we got Zirkzee so cheap, we get our money back. I don't know what the wages are though, but if you can get your money back and cover up, if you can get your money back, Man United might do it if he wants to go. But I just find it really, really weird. But again, it's there, and is he going to be part of Amorim's plans? And in a way, I think Zirkzee's quite symbolic of the January transfer window. Like, we're not operating under a Glazer regime, and we're not operating under Ten Hag. Different ownership, different manager, and things in January could happen. It's almost like we're indoctrinated or familiar with the workings of the past. We don't do anything in January. We hold on to players. But that's a Glazer regime. This is a new regime. And Zirkzee is an Ineos signing. That's the thing that sort of confuses me. What are we going to do? Try and pretend it was a Ten Hag signing? Well, it can't be a Ten Hag signing because that's not how the summer transfer window works. It was a collective. So I don't think he will go. But if he's unhappy, which some reports say he is, then maybe that's where we're going to end up with this. But I'm with Kylo. I think Zirkzee is the least of our problems, and I certainly would be looking at certain other players going before him. Welcome to Members Club, Buds. I really appreciate that. Obviously, there's Antony on the thumbnail as well. I just wanted to throw Antony in because if he doesn't get any minutes, the reason I put Antony in there is because he's not really been name-checked by Amorim at all in his first few interviews. There's nothing really been said about Antony at all. He's mentioned Garnacho, he's mentioned Rashford, he's mentioned Zirkzee, I think he's mentioned Rasmus, he's mentioned Ahmad, obviously, of course. I've heard no mention of Antony. Now, we don't know enough about Amorim. Maybe he's just laying the gauntlet down. But Antony is symbolic of a Ten Hag mistake, a very, very big mistake. Antony is symbolic of a past we want to move away from. It's not his fault, but overpaid, overpaid, too much money, too much wages, and massively not good enough. So I'm just wondering, some people were talking about Antony as a wing-back. Some people were talking about Antony having a renaissance. There is a bit of a cult following behind Antony. But if he doesn't get any game minutes tonight, or he doesn't start tonight, or he's just cameoing tonight, I think it's inevitable that he is going to be a player in January that's going to get moved on in some way, shape or form. We've seen Brighton coming out looking to move Evan Ferguson on to get him minutes. I can see the same thing happening with Antony. Unless something amazing happens tonight where he starts or he comes on and plays brilliantly well and starts competing with Rashford, Ahmad and Garnacho, I just don't see... James says Antony's a waste of organs. I think that's way too far. I think he's a waste in a team where he's in his, he's approaching his mid-20s. He's on big money. He costs big money, and he's also in that. He's almost in that halfway house where you're not a first teamer, and there's younger players coming through, and there's players we'd like to sign where you're taking somebody's spot. I just don't see the value of Antony as a fourth choice winger or whatever he is on 200 grand a week when you've got young players coming through. You want to buy players, and he's way behind 4 or 5 others. So I think that he is probably going to be a player in January that we look to move on as well, if I'm being completely honest. Give us your thoughts on that. The Zirkzee poll, will Zirkzee be here next season? 55% of you are saying no, 45% of you are saying yes. So it's pretty split, which I find incredible for a new signing. It's incredible, but some might say that there is no smoke without fire. And as I said, it's a news show. It's again from Italy. It's Gazzetta dello Sport. It's talks last Tuesday. It's talks with the agent and Man United. It just feels like this is becoming quite relentless. Why is it relentless? And it can't be just because Juventus want to sign Zirkzee. It would have to be because Zirkzee's not happy or United are looking to do a deal. So let's keep an eye on that. Do you think Kukonki will get some game time, says Riley? Well, this is the 16-year-old, 6'4" centre-back who's training with the first team. What I do know about tonight is that Mainu is very much expected to start. That's one name we really do expect to start. Ahmad and Rashford are expected not to start. I don't know whether that's an eye on Everton or not. Robert's right. If you don't start tonight, it doesn't mean you're not starting against Everton. And if you do start tonight, it doesn't mean you're starting against Everton. So I think we will see some rotation. Whether we would see any young players given time or not, I think primarily he wants to win the game tonight. And in the short term, I think the best he can offer to some of these young players is train with the first team. Unless they're exceptional, I don't think he's going to throw them into the first team at the moment because his priority is to get the first team playing the football he wants. So results are important. A lot of people diminish the game tonight. I'm actually very excited about this in Everton. Obviously, Arsenal next week's massive. It's a real test. But Everton and Bodo Glimt have to be wins to allow you the Arsenal loss if it comes. If you win or you draw, happy days. But you've got to provide a base to go into that Arsenal game. And people might look at Bodo Glimt and go, like one of my mates just messaged me and went, who the fuck are Bodo Glimt? He's not a Man United fan. But he was like, I didn't know you were playing. Who are they? And obviously as United fans, we know who they are, but to the external world that they probably don't, some of them. And I don't think it'll be a walk in the park. And even if it is, good. We just need to win tonight. It's about momentum. It's about confidence. Mako says, took Gravenberch a season to work in the Premier League. Yeah, and he's brilliant now. Is it guaranteed we get players if we've got outgoings as well, says Luca? I think whether outgoings happen, and I'm sure they will, as a new manager, Amorim needs to have a fund anyway. I would be stunned if a manager signed a contract at United based on sell to buy. They must have said to Amorim, regardless of what happens, you've got a budget of 100 million. Like, they've got to say that. And I'm absolutely convinced, I said it on That's Football last night, I'm absolutely convinced that the reason Pep signed a 2-year contract at Man City is because they wanted Amorim and he's gone to Man United and their plans are in tatters. So they've sort of begged Pep to stay for a couple of years to help them figure out the next plan. So Amorim effectively has turned Man City down to take the Man United job. I'm sure there's a budget. It would be madness to agree to come to United without a budget. So I think there will be. Gabe says, I think Zirkzee deserves another year simply because he likes... okay, I don't know what that is, Gabe, so I can't really read it out in case it's offensive. And how much do you think we would get for Antony, and how much of a loss would that be for United, says Shah. Financially, it will be a massive loss. How much we'd get for him, get in the chat. If you're not watching live, get in the chat. How much is Antony worth? Honestly, 25 million, 30 million. I think he's so hard to pitch because I don't know where you value him at. I just don't know. I mean, there's just no value. What has he done in the last 2 years from £80 million? And remember, we haven't paid off Ajax yet. Unfortunately, I'd like to be sat here and say Antony is the example of the worst ever bit of dealing Man United have ever done. Unfortunately, it's not. We've done loads of these deals, loads and loads and loads of them, and it's not just signings, it's contracts as well. I mean, how many stupid contracts have we handed out as well? Tonight Antony comes good, says Keel. Well, we'll have to wait and see. You know, he might play. Destiny says, morning, Man United going to sign this season. I don't know what Am is. Would you do Zirkzee and 10-20 million for Kuna? Says Keith Boy. I don't think he wants to stay in the Premier League if he's going to leave, mate. But I would do that deal, definitely, yeah. Moving on, let's talk a couple of transfer stories. So I want to talk about... done that. What was this? Oh, should we do the... talking about strikers, I mentioned it at the start. Let's just do it now. So an ex-United player has spoken about Gyökeres to Manchester United, has watched the Arsenal game, and basically said that based on what he's seen from Gyökeres against Saliba and Gabriel, he might not be the answer at Manchester United. You'd certainly want more from him. Effectively, he had no joy against those centre-backs. That's what it's going to be like in the Premier League all the time. And he only looked decent when Gabriel came off. I mean, look, this is the vacuum of opinion, isn't it? Everybody's entitled to one. I've had bad opinions. You'll have bad opinions. But tell me you don't watch Gyökeres without telling me you don't watch Gyökeres. I mean, if you're judging Gyökeres based on that Arsenal game, you must have been half watching it. I actually thought he played well. I thought he played well again. I actually thought he was one of the few players that had a good game for Sporting. His big problem was his shots like a bloody Scud missile, but he kept hitting it over the bar. But I actually thought Gyökeres was a handful for Saliba and Gabriel. I don't think he had a bad game at all. But Rio Ferdinand, or Rip, has said that, you know, he would expect more, and basically saying maybe Man United shouldn't be looking at him. Exactly. David says he destroyed City. Did he not watch that game? I know, it's just it's incredible analysis to me. And it doesn't do the ex-player brigade any favours when they're talking about potential signings from Europe, that they watch or half watch an Arsenal game, completely miss that actually Gyökeres played quite well, and then completely forget that he actually destroyed Man City a few weeks ago and actually has been playing well for Sporting against top European opposition for quite a while. Look, based on that Arsenal game, if that was the first time I watched Gyökeres, I'd be saying I want to watch him again. I like him. He's basically a lone striker, running the channels, being physical, getting shots off in a team that was getting battered. I had no problem with his performance against Sporting at all, and I saw nothing in that Rio, you know, obviously Rio saw something that made him go, I'd be a bit worried about him coming to the Premier League based on that performance. I'd be like, do you watch Man United every week? Do you watch, like, every team in the Premier League? Who else has got strikers like that? I think Gyökeres, and I'm not just saying from a Man United point of view, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd want him at Arsenal based on that performance. So, and trust me on this, this is not a Man United signing where we've got to decide whether we want him or not. This is a Man United signing we've got to decide if we want him, and we've got to try and get him. Because I'll tell you what, if he doesn't come to Manchester United, he will be going to Arsenal or Bayern Munich or wherever. He will be going to a top club this summer. It's not about whether he's good enough for Man United. It's about whether we can get him. And I think that I saw nothing wrong with that Arsenal game. And I've seen nothing wrong with him at all when I've watched him over the last few games for Sporting, and occasionally over the last year. But I think he's got the lot, and I think he's at the right age. I was stunned by that analysis that you'd want to see more from him. I don't know. He's old though, says Shush. He's 26. He's 26. Have my kids, please, says Wimley. Okay. City do not have a good defence, says Keel. And Espen, thank you very much for your super chat. Pogba, worst deal ever, fooled us twice, says Ben Ellis. It could be that Zirkzee is unhappy, says Karna Dave, with Rashford constantly starting over him. And Shaunak says, pause the Gervais episode to watch this. Watching United stance since 2018 is the best. Missed those morning shows you used to do while walking to work. Loved your recent interview too, says Shaunak. Well, get ready for those. They might be coming back. Mark, I'm on my way to Manchester. I'll be first time going to Old Trafford. I'm so stoked, says David. Enjoy it, David. It's going to be Amorim's first game as well. Very excited for that tomorrow as well. And Michael, welcome to Members Club. You're an absolute legend. Thank you very much. The idiot says Gyökeres is not old. He's only 26. Yeah, 26, and he'll be 27 in the summer. Jeff says the Premier League is a different animal, Mark. That's not my point. That's not my point. I think that the point was, did you watch the Arsenal game and think he's going to struggle in the Premier League? That's what Rio is saying. I'm saying I've seen more of Gyökeres than the Arsenal game. I thought he played well in the Gyökeres game. In the Arsenal game. And any signing can flop in the Premier League. That risk is always there. But I look at it and go, I'd be very happy to have him at Manchester United. I actually thought he played well against Arsenal. I think you can play well in a team that gets stuffed. And I thought he played well. Like Courtois played world class last night for Real Madrid. They still got beat. Will the board be blamed for the Zirkzee transfer, says Underdog Denham? Let's not write Zirkzee off. That's all I'm going to say. These stories are becoming more frequent, and maybe he's unsettled. But look, let me answer the question, because it's a good question from Underdog. If Zirkzee ends up leaving Man United because he's unsettled and unhappy, and we end up getting our money back from Italy, it's not too bad. It's no harm done. Unhappy player leaves, Man United get their money back. But I hope that's not the case. I hope he is going to be part of our plans, and I hope he is going to be part of our future, because I think there's a good player there. What I would say is if he did leave, you've got to look at Ineos and go, you've failed massively on personality, determination, suitability, and talent. And that's worrying. That's really worrying. My fear about Zirkzee, if it goes wrong, is something happened there that was a little bit Glazer-esque. And what I mean is, it was a bit panicky. We were in for Sesko. We might not have got Sesko. We were in for Sesko. Sesko says he's staying at Leipzig. Zirkzee's going to Milan. A week later, United are stealing him from Milan because we're paying the agent more money. Did we really do a load of work on Zirkzee? Did we really research Zirkzee? Or was it a panic because the Sesko deal didn't happen? We can only judge that if it goes wrong. Hopefully it's going to go right. But if he ended up leaving Man United, then it would expose some of the mistakes that have been made of the past, where you run into a bad decision. And look, I want talented players at Man United, but I also, above anything else, I want players that want to play at Man United, and I want players that are determined to play for Man United. And it's way too soon for fans or the club to be making their mind up about Zirkzee. And it's way too soon for Zirkzee to be unhappy at Man United because he's not playing. He's not even been here 6 months. So I'm hoping it's all a load of crap, but it does keep happening. The story does keep coming in. We got fresh credit from the bank, says Espen. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on. So just a bit more transfer news potentially on the incoming scenario. I've got a story on Angel Gomes. You might have seen it on his Instagram. He's had an injury for a few months now that he says has been damaging his performance. So he's actually going to have an operation. There's no update on how long he's going to be out for. Could be weeks, could be months, nobody knows. But his contract is up at the end of the season with Lille. Now, he has been linked to Manchester United. He's been linked to other clubs as well. from January the 1st, he can speak to other clubs. He's like Alphonso Davies, who Man United almost are also interested in. So basically, if you're playing in a different league and your contract is up in the summer, in the January transfer window, you can talk to clubs from other leagues. So France, Gomes can speak to Premier League clubs. He can speak to La Liga clubs, Bundesliga. Alphonso Davies, Bundesliga, can speak to French clubs, English clubs, etc. So it's an interesting one with Angel Gomes, because if he's injured now, does that make it less attractive, easier to do? I don't know. But look, there are some people that would take Angel Gomes back at Manchester United. I don't know about Angel Gomes' suitability for a role at Manchester United, if I'm being completely honest. I look at the team. You've got the double pivot. Would he play there? Is he got the manoeuvrability and the physicality to play in the double pivot? You look at some of the players that have played that role for Amorim. Doesn't necessarily tend to go for smaller players. But then you'd look at Angel Gomes playing in behind a striker, where I think he could definitely do some damage. But are we not stacked in that position with Mount and Ahmad and Garnacho and Rashford and Bruno and Zirkzee? So I don't know. I don't know whether Gomes actually suits us, and I think we'd have to watch United until at least the end of December to understand where he would fit in. Robert McCormack says, I was backing Gyökeres to score goals at Coventry. Doesn't surprise me he's marched on, but being consistent in a small league don't mean he can do it in the Premier League, says Robert McCormack. I think the biggest thing with the striker, Robert, and many of us have said it, and somebody said it yesterday, I don't judge Rasmus. Funnily enough, I don't really judge Rashford beyond his lack of physicality, hold-up play, and ability to press last Sunday, because he had one chance and he scored it. I think if Rashford gets chances in the box, he can score. I don't think he's a number 9. But Rasmus doesn't get chances. It's a graveyard shift. I wouldn't buy Erling Haaland at the moment. If I had 150 million pounds, I wouldn't spend it on Erling Haaland if that was the price. It's a waste of time. There's absolutely no point in getting the icing when you haven't baked to the cake. And we've got to create the chances. When we start creating chances, look, if I had a striker that was missing 2 or 3 big chances every game, I'd be like, we need a striker, because it's obvious. These chances should be goals. We're missing because we haven't got a striker. At the moment, it's the other way round. I think we've got strikers who can score goals, but we haven't got creation. So Gyökeres for me at the moment would be an irrelevance. That's why I'm happy it would be a summer deal, because by the summer, hopefully we're creating chances and we'll understand whether we need a striker or not. Danny says, I think Rasmus can become better than Gyökeres under Amorim if he gets enough supply. Well, exactly what I was just saying there. Yeah. Gary Neville was timed out by Savage. It won't be the real one. The message from Gary Neville, who is a member, says, Rasmus is your mate, Mark. Of course you wouldn't judge him. Mate, come on, grow up. I like Bruno. I've given him bad scores for about 8 months. I like Rasmus. I've given him bad scores for the last few weeks. A bad score is below a 6. 6 is average. I don't remember the last time I gave Rasmus a 6. I will always give honest scores. That's the way it is. Do I like Rasmus? Yes. Do I want him to score goals? Yes. Do I think he's going to score tonight? Yes. Do I think he can score lots of goals if he gets service? Yes. He needs service and he needs to stay fit. They're 2 things that have to happen. Otherwise, it won't work. I think Amorim's correct. He needs to fix the team to make more chances. Exactly, 100%. Let's move on. A couple of things I still want to talk about. Oh, this was quite interesting, actually. Look, I think it's a load of bull. Actually, can I read you this first before I go to that? There's this story about Rashford and Turkey, but this to me is why the United stand should never be called like sensationalist or anything like that. And people call it the negative stand and clickbait and all that nonsense. I don't think people understand just, we talk about what is in the news, like it's genuinely in the news. Like there could be a double exit in January with Zirkzee and Antony based on what we've discussed this morning. Nobody can deny that. This headline today in the Express: Amorim slaps Man United star in training and pushes another. I'm going to go and find these at least once a week. The worst sensationalist bullshit headline of the week. This is genuine. The Daily Express is a paper in the UK, and this headline is absolutely genuine. Ruben Amorim slaps Man United star in training and pushes another. That's a headline. Now, what does that headline do for you? Because I've got visions of Amorim angrily walking onto the training ground at Carrington, slapping one player around the face because he thinks they're shit, and then someone else pushing them on the floor because he thinks they're shit as well. That is a genuine headline. Genuine headline. Imagine if that was our morning show. Title, Amorim slaps Man United star. That, my friends, is clickbait personified. Caught in 4K. Because you click the article, they've won, and he hasn't slapped or pushed a player in the sense of what the headline says. Basically, this is to do with Martinez, Yoro, and Maguire being back in training after injury, and Amorim, I don't know whether it happened before Amorim, but there is this initiation thing where the players line up and they have to go through it and be applauded. So Amorim was like patting them on the back, slap, and pushing one of the players to go through and get on with it. Incredible. Incredible. And you know what? Fan content gets a bad thing going on, but that to me is just absolutely incredible. Incredible. But just a bit of banter there. Anyway, from one potentially ridiculous story to another. Turkey. An agent in Turkey who has helped Galatasaray recruit players like Icardi and Osimhen is apparently saying he can get Marcus Rashford to Turkey. I only mention this because obviously yesterday Amorim mentioned Rashford. A lot of people have been talking about him over the last few days. I think too much talk has been said around Rashford, to be honest with you. But I did want to just say, as a community, some people would get rid of him, I know. But I still come back to the point of where would he go? Where does he go? Where does he end up going? Like at 27 on 300 or whatever grand a week, where does he even go? Like, I don't think he wants to go. I don't think he wants to go anywhere other than Manchester anyway. I don't actually think he's ambitious enough to actually go and go, you know, it's not working out here. Let's go and play football for Galatasaray and get my career on that. I don't get the feeling that Rashford's got that in him at all. I think he might fancy PSG because it's a big club and, you know, it's Champions League football. But I don't think he's going to... I don't see if this goes wrong, Rashford's going to go, I just want to play football. Let's go and play in Turkey or let's go and play in the Bundesliga. I think this is the best solution to this problem is that we get the Rashford back that most of us want to get back, because I can't see him getting. I don't think he looks like a player that actually would want to go and play somewhere else to play football. I mean, he gets enough opportunity in a Man United shirt, and we don't see it. So I can't see. I still think the only solution to this is that he actually starts playing well. And I know people will say you're absolutely mad because we've been waiting for it for nearly 2 years, but I think it's the only solution. I just don't. What do you do with a player? And we've seen it before with other United players. But what do you do with a player that goes, hold on a minute, and I just want to make this. I just want to make sure I get this right, because get it wrong and you might get someone saying something. So let's make believe that in the case of Rashford, it doesn't work out at United this season. Gets the opportunities, doesn't work out, not in the team. How do you remove a player that's got a contract for 4 more years? 2028, his contract runs out. And he's on around 300k a week. How much is that worth? It's worth around £1.5 million a month. Or 1.3 or 1.4. That's what? 18 million a year? He's not worth 8 million a year at the moment. I just think he's unsellable. I don't think the motivation is there from him to go, and I don't think United know what to do. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see how. It's a bit like Casemiro, I suppose, with 2 years. If he doesn't fancy Saudi Arabia, you can't get rid of him. And that's a great point. It transcends Rashford. There are 3 or 4 players at United. Luke Shaw, you can't get rid of him. 180 grand a week. He's got 3 years left on his deal. Casemiro's got 2. Rashford's got 4. You just can't get rid of these players. And I suppose that's my big mantra. I don't know whether these players are saying it, but they could do. Whatever happens, I get paid, and I get paid good. As Michael says, they're winning the lottery once a month. Joseph says, Mark, the United leadership should take action against sensationalist bullshit articles. I don't think they can, mate. I mean, I don't think those sort of stories are anything new. They've been going on for, I mean, when I was growing up, there was no social media. The newspapers were your news, and you would get pictures of a manager where they'd put a turnip on the top of their head. So it makes me laugh when people make out that that social media has made football more toxic. I genuinely think if you were going to games in the early 90s or reading papers in the early 90s, it was toxic. I mean, look at David Beckham in 98. They were putting pictures on the Sun of David Beckham as a dummy hanging from a bridge. So you wouldn't get away with that sort of stuff now. TV was not in black and white when I was a kid, hockey sense. Yeah, but it was a lot worse. I mean, social media is bad, but it was a lot worse in them days. And tell you why it was a lot worse. You get an idiot like me saying something you don't like. There's plenty of other people saying stuff. It's take your choice. In those days, if you were a journalist for The Sun, their circulation was probably in its heyday. I don't know what it was. The UK population back then was probably 50 million. And you probably had at least 15% of the nation reading The Sun. So if you were a football journalist in them days, you probably had 80% of football watchers reading your article, one person. The power of that. And you could write what you wanted. People writing off Zirkzee worry me because that's part of the reason why our club also struggles, says Royden. I agree with you, Royden. I mean, I will follow the news. If Zirkzee's unhappy and Man United cash in, it happens. But until I know that, I'm backing the player. I want him to do well, and I will be patient. Because you're right, there are mistakes where we just throw things down and we want something new all the time, and patience is going to be important. But I trust what Amorim wants. Some players are not showing the attitude or the form for them to be a good prospect for sale either. That's a big issue regarding sales too. Yes, Patrick, and you know what? Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Scott McTominay are prime examples of what United need to do more. Both needed to be sold. Both have gone off and done really well. Both give Man United a good reputation to other clubs that they might want to buy more of our players. So we've sold bad recently. We've bought bad and we've sold bad. I don't regret selling Wan-Bissaka or Scott McTominay, and Man City and Chelsea do this all the time. They sell for good money for players that they don't miss. I think with McTominay and Wan-Bissaka, we don't miss them. But what we have done is they've gone off elsewhere, they've done well, and we've pocketed good money for them. And we need to do that more and more and more and more. Whether we can do or not, let's see. Sorry for backing our promising striker weirdos, this is MMA Takedown. And James Cave says, I read an article on Gomes' shift from number 10 to deep-lying playmaker in France. Amorim likes versatility, intelligence, and Gomes is one of those. Thank you very much, James, for your super chat this morning. And SK says, I think Amorim's correct. He needs to fix it. I've done that one, haven't I? Thank you very much for that. Selling Wan-Bissaka bought us Mazraoui, good trade. Yep, selling McTominay brought us Agate, and hopefully that will be a good trade as well. Thank you very much for that. I know a lot of people miss McTominay, and I get it, but for me, I think it was a good deal all round. I don't think McTominay would have worked under Amorim either. I just don't see where he would have fitted in. Hi, Mark. Do you think we're going to see a bit more energy from the lads tonight, says Angelina? I hope so. I hope so. I want to see it in the first 10 minutes, really, because if, as I said at the start, Amorim's going to focus on getting the crowd going, then you've got to get that crowd going in the first 10 minutes, 100%. I don't know, just also as well, I would have forgotten this, but you've just reminded me. Obviously, the last sort of 24 hours has been primarily about Amorim and how in tune he is with the fans and how good he is at speaking honestly, much the same as Rangnick. I read something yesterday from Gus Hiddink, who is a former Dutch manager. I don't even know how old he is now. I don't think he works. But he always used to come and help Chelsea, manage the Dutch side. I think he managed Real Madrid actually at some point. But certainly he used to come in and be an interim for Chelsea quite regularly. He was talking about Ten Hag. And he basically made 2 points that I thought were quite interesting about Ten Hag that are going to be very relevant for Amorim. And he said that Ten Hag's big mistake was that he became an island. He became an argumentative island. And when you go to war with the press or fans, there's going to be missiles and there's going to be damage. And ultimately, you're inviting those missiles. And ultimately, he lost his job because of that. I think that is a fair analysis, actually. I think a lot of people make opinions that I sometimes don't agree with. Like I say, I don't agree with that Gyökeres point. But I do think that he's right about that. And I think already, like Ralf Rangnick in his press conferences told more truths than Ten Hag, but didn't be argumentative with it. He was very, very, very well-mannered and just spoke the truth. In the short time from Amorim, he's not argumentative. He's very polite, but he's very forthright in his opinion. I think Ten Hag did, and look, I was a fan of Ten Hag. I wanted him to do well, but I never really would have said it at the time, but I did say it in press conference reactions. He concerned me in interviews after the first year. He did become quite irritated. And the worst thing you can do with the media is let them know that you're getting under your skin. And he did become a bit of an island. And I just don't think... look, I think that was a personality problem in the sense that at Man United, you can be a fantastic coach, but you've also got to be really good with the media. I think at other clubs you don't. You don't have to be. At other clubs you're protected. At other clubs it's not as 24/7 focus, but... I think it's so important for Amorim that, and I don't think he'll have a problem with it, but I think it's so important that he continues how he started. He's quite open to answering questions. He's quite animated, and that makes him quite personable and easy to deflect. Whereas with Ten Hag, especially in the last few months, although I thought the press were hounding him, because he was losing the fans, there wasn't a lot of sympathy for being hounded by the press. I mean, look, the way Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer spoke to Ten Hag after he'd won the FA Cup was atrocious, and fair play. Most Man United fans jumped on that. But there were times where things like that happened and he'd lost a lot of support. So I think it's really important. We saw it with Rangnick, that Amorim continues to do what he started, really personable, but really forthright and honest. And I do think you've got to have a personality to be a Man United manager. I really, really do. Gory, welcome to the Members Club. You're a legend. And Ed Sharon, welcome to the Members Club as well. Thank you very much for that. Jason's put a super chat in. He says, going for Angel Gomes depends on his character. Is Angel Gomes like Pogba, a mercenary, or is he like Dani Olmo, who left to get experience so he can come back to fight for the first team for his club? Says Jason. I think you make a great point. I think that when you look at all players now, we can all pretend that we like a certain player because they're a player that we want at Manchester United. Like, I could say to you, I really want Man United to go and get Ederson from Atalanta. As you know, I do. I've been saying about it for a long, long time. But what I would say about Ederson is if we go and get Ederson, then what's his personality? And if somebody said to me, Mark, you know what? You know you want to get Ederson. He's a right nightmare at Atalanta. He's dead lazy in training. He's really arrogant. When things go wrong, he disappears. I'd be like, I don't want him anymore. I think character's so important, and I can't sit here and tell you what the character of Ederson is, what the character of Angel Gomes is. And I think you make a great point. This is something that only Ineos can answer. They've got to do their homework. We've spoken about this, about players, and I got into trouble last year because I was like, I like the look of Neto because at Wolves, I think he's married. I think he's got kids. This, those sort of things. People are like, you can't look at that. You can't say you want a player who's married over a player that's, out partying. I can do exactly what I bloody well like because I'm not the manager and I'm not employing anybody. So I can't get it done under employment law. If it was my team, I wouldn't be saying that publicly, but I would be thinking about it. But you know what? It doesn't mean because you're married and you've got kids that you're not cheating and out partying. We know players who've done that. And because you're not married and you haven't got kids doesn't mean that you're out partying and you're not professional. My point is, the character of a player can only be determined by homework done by the football club. And I don't think we've done very good at that in the past. We must do it now. Sir Alex Ferguson, I mean, this is a long time ago, but Sir Alex Ferguson used to really want his players to settle down and get married because it meant that they were focused more on football, in his opinion. I mean, that's an old way of looking at it, but I do get it. And I think we've let that slip. Some players are not showing the attitude. We've done that from Patrick. Appreciate that as well. Okay, well, thanks everybody for watching this morning. Donny Olmo to support or replace Bruno, says FIFA Beetle. He's only just gone to Barca. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think we could. I do think we need. I do think that in relation to transfers, they will happen. In relation to sales, they will happen. But I think that between now and January is so important. There are so many games. I mean, how many games have we got? Bodo Glimt, Everton, Arsenal, Forest, Plazen, City, Spurs, Bournemouth, Wolves, Newcastle. I think we've got 10 games before January the 1st, or 9. By then, we'll know. We'll know who's performing. We'll know who's showing potential. We'll know who's not. We'll know who's being picked. We'll know who's not. I think by mid to late December, we'll start to get a good idea of whether we need another 10, we need another winger, need another centre-back. Yeah, I think we will. Paul Lucas says, great show, Mark. Come on, United. Yeah, don't forget the watch-along tonight. Very excited for it. We'll be obviously live from Manchester for the countdown to kick-off. We've got player ratings, the whole lot's going on. Very excited. 2 games in 3 days, actually, when you think about it. Everton on Sunday. You've got to keep an eye on that. Robert McCormack's absolutely right. Everton have got the whole week off. We're playing Thursday night, Sunday afternoon. It's tough. It really is a quick turnaround. The way I look at that, it's like playing Wednesday night and Saturday lunchtime. It's a very quick turnaround. Thankfully, we're playing at home on both. Christmas jumpers, we've got a whole array of them. You should be able to see it under the video now. Ganat, Cho Ho Ho, Amorim. I love the Bauble treble winners one. That's back this year as well. Check it out on the website. The link's in the video description. We've got loads of Christmas jumpers you can get them ordered. But the knitted jumper, which is a limited edition one, we're down to 29. So if you want to get one, get onto it now. We do ship worldwide. Thanks everybody for watching. Speak to you in a bit. Any Ten Hag jumpers, says Ed. We used to have a Ten Hag jumper, but the Breaking Bad style one. But I think it's a collector's item now. I think it's gone. I don't think it's on the website. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all a little bit later. Thanks very much for watching.